Hi, my friends. Welcome to the gathering. I am David Ault, and it's always an honor to have you here. Thank you. I just wanted to talk briefly to you today about unconditioned love. And maybe we can laugh together at the fact that that's an oxymoron because love, in the best way that we can define it, is unconditioned. It knows nothing of conditionality because what love is creation itself. I don't know. Who knows? The best that we can try to do is to look all around us in terms of the way in which intelligence is working through nature, through the physiology of our being, through the creativity that pours out of us through consciousness and the development of self-awareness, and realize that all of that is some kind of formula that is birthed from love bringing things to life, love having its influence in the way in which there is a potential, there is an evolution to care and to embrace others, embrace the world. And we fall short. And we fall short of the full experience of love or even the constancy of love because somewhere along the line, we have bought into a false idea of love as conditional, that love is based upon productivity or accolades or accomplishment. And we do that, we obtain this falsity based upon just environment, right? Or religion or culture. And so it's a weird sort of paradoxical game that you and I are involved in because we come from love and we return to love. But in the middle of that, there's all this mud. There's all this wandering and getting lost on the path. And yet we're not really lost. It's just sort of we're picking our own adventure with regards to how quickly, how beautifully, how effortlessly we return back to the thing that we are. And we all have to go on our own muddied journey in order to experience that. But love is unconditioned. However, when we're expressing love, or even when we're seeking love, is it love that we're seeking or some type of pacifier for the fears that we have? And so the things that we call love can be very temporary and misguided. They could be infatuations, they could be grabbings and projections that somehow this thing will pacify my fear, and we'll call it love. We do that in relationships with people. We grab and seek for others to kind of fill some hole that we have developed or bought into, thinking that that's love, but that's not love at all. That is just a temporary fearful grabbing and expecting the outer world to be able to do something for us that it can't. Love in and of itself is a realization, not an acquisition. Love itself is a realization, a realization of its isness. It just is. It's not something acquired or earned. And so as we look at that, then what makes that meaningful for you and I? How do we become a more in tune with or at home with the unconditionality of love? Well, I'll give you an example. So um, I'm a writer, as one of my expressions. And one of the gifts that I have been afforded is to be able to write something called the daily guides for an international spiritual magazine. And the request began to happen in 2016. And since then, I've been asked many times, and it's a wonderful exercise. I think I've talked about that before in this forum because there's a finite word count, and I'm trying to get the story in, and I want it to be the best, right? And without fail, every single time, once I've turned my deadline of my guides in, all of those 30 or 31 stories, there is there is this anticipation for the product, for when the magazine comes out in print and I get a hold of them. And again, without fail, when they arrive and I get them, I'm like, oh, they're here, it's elated. And I get all, excited about the way they look and all of that kind of stuff. And then I start to read them again for the 100th time. And some of them I find pleasing, but then all of a sudden, some of them I go, ooh, I could have done that better. Oh, I wish I'd said it differently. Ooh, that feels incomplete. And I begin to judge my creativity. And I begin to get fear. I don't think of it as fearful, but I become fearful about what others will think. So the fear of what others will think, or what the outside world will, how they will react to us, is one of the biggest perpetrators of, and the biggest oppositions of feeling the unconditioned love. It postpones it and pushes it away. And so it came up again yesterday. They came in for the September issue. I got all elated, started reading it, and I could feel that old familiar setback, that conditionality that somehow it's just not good enough. And so here's a little thing that I've begun to practice with that, because that's not going to go away. It's not going to go away. So if it's not going to go away, and the object isn't to erase it, because that's sort of a monumental, futile journey, right? Because it's just this voice. But the new goal, or the new awareness, is just to sit and become calm and to breathe and go, what is that voice? Whose voice is that? And to just sort of sit in the observation and be with the inner critic. And by being with the inner critic, it's not fighting so much for our attention, because now we're just sitting with it. We're sitting with it. We're not trying to fix it. We're not trying to close it out or evaporate it. We're just observing it. And in the act, in the quiet, subtle act of just observing the inner critic, we're welcoming a larger presence, a homecoming of how love is unconditioned and has been there all along. So you and I can outrun, outrace, out try to produce everything to silence the inner critic. And it's not, we learned that it isn't about silencing the inner critic. It's about just sitting and observing it. And so there is no opposition, there is no resistance, because what we resist persists. And so what happens then is there is a transformation in seeing that the inner critic is not some type of demon that is forever latched onto our back, but it is a form of teaching. It is a form of awareness that is there to usher us into a new portal, or through a new gate of evolution, where all things truly are helping to to pacify and soften that duality and that concern about what other people think. And so it may always be there, but now it's just sort of sitting at the table, and we can give it as much attention as we want, or we can just nod at it and smile and let it remind us to go back to the welcoming of unconditioned love. And so that's what I did yesterday. And I just kind of had to smile and go, just another opportunity, because it will always happen. It happens all through the day. I run a foundation. I'm an executive director and the founder of a nonprofit that brings about global education that is solely dependent upon donations. And so when the donations don't come, or they're not coming as fast as we had hoped, or we had pursued a grant, or we had pursued this and it doesn't pan out, I can let the inner critic say, wow, you're not a very effective executive director. Wow, you didn't do that right. That's a heavy, heavy, muddied path to get stuck in. And so, what we get to do with that is, again, not try to outmaneuver or even outproduce it. Well, oh, yeah, well, I'll show you, I'll work even harder. That has a shelf life because you and I are not built for that. What we are is a walking, breathing energy of wisdom that just says, just observe it, and realize that it's part of the curriculum, and that by observing it and letting it soften us and just softening it, what we are practicing and what we are opening ourselves into is letting the love pour itself into us unconditionally, not whether or not I did it right, not whether or not we got the grant or we got the big donation or we did whatever we did. It's just because who we and what we are is love. And so here's the way that works then through the lawful reciprocity. The more that I can be the vessel of that unconditioned love, the more that I can just be at home with that and I allow that, the more that I'm able to see it all around me, all around me. The more that I stop pushing away a compliment, the more that I stop pushing away the gifts that are wanting to be given, and I just say thank you, and I receive them graciously, the more then I am able to see that love in action, that love at play, because I'm no longer repelling it. I'm no longer trying to prove that I'm more worthy of it. It's just like, yes, thank you, thank you. So I hope that this week you can think about love as unconditioned. It can't be anything but that. And that it just awaits our recognition, our allowance. And again, perhaps like I did yesterday, just sit and look at all of the ways in which I'm trying to shout um, over it or deny it or push it away by some futile loyalty to an inner critic that tells me I'm not enough or I didn't do it right. Again, just look at that and go, that's not my problem. That is a universal activity. It's not unique just to me. Everyone goes through that. So if everyone's going through that, why not soften it within myself so I can be an embodiment or an example of how we can all do that? And that way we become more and more in harmony with the love that is all around us. May you be willing to try that. Don't try to push it away. Just observe it. Just get quiet. Just get quiet and go, I see. Okay. All right. And just let yourself be loved for who and what you are, because you are enough. Blessings.